Are you old enough to remember when we got out of Vietnam, how bad it looked, how it damaged our reputation internationally? It looked like America had lost a war. Now, that's a Reader's Digest version, not technically true, but this was a dark, dark moment. And I thought it would never happen again. But something eerily similar is taking place right now in Afghanistan, where America is on the run. Now, you've heard that the military has been withdrawn, the American military. Well, guess what? We got out in such a rushed and haphazard fashion under Joe Biden that we have to go back in now. 3,000 military troops are being sent in to evacuate American personnel, especially from the embassy there. It did not have to be this way. We got out in such a rush. This would not have happened under President Trump. It would not have. Here's something, though, that inspired me, although it's a little bit odd. Take a look. Women who are committed to fighting for their country. These are armed women who are resisting Taliban rule. That's not something you see every day. I wish them luck. Life under the Taliban for women is said to be a nightmare. Meanwhile, back in this country, we've got Hunter Biden, son of the president, still making a spectacle out of himself. I don't know what it is about this guy. He felt like he had to record his every move on a computer. Now, the mainstream media always looks the other way, always says this is not a big deal. This is a big deal.
We have great confidence in our son. I am not concerned about any accusations been made against him. It's used to get to me. I think it's kind of foul play, but look, it is what it is, and he's a grown man. He is the smartest man I know. I mean, in a pure intellectual capacity, and as long as he's good, we're good.
Well, the smartest man he knows has lost now 2 laptops with incredibly sensitive information that may involve Joe Biden. It's not so much Hunter, it's actually you, Joe, that we are worried about. And you know what? All this stuff about prostitutes and Russians and laptops and sounds a little bit like the Steele Dossier. Remember that? That attempted smear job against President Trump, the Steele Dossier, and all the salacious things that were supposed to be on that? What did we hear Hunter just say? All the wild, blanking sex that he had on that computer? Seems like maybe who was ever behind the Steele Dossier may have just switched a name. Remember that Steele Dossier? They tried to hang it on Trump. It was all a lie.
A lot more on the dossier, the very controversial, salacious dossier.
Christopher Steele produced the dossier, which included allegations that Mr. Trump had been caught in compromising financial and sexual activity.
Look at that dossier. Everything in there, I mean, most of it has been corroborated.
The dossier contains a description of a time that Donald Trump spent in a Moscow hotel suite with prostitutes who urinated on his bed.
Donald Trump didn't seem to care much about Russian election meddling, but cared a lot about Russian prostitutes and that other thing.
They're talking about Hunter. I think the people behind the Steele Dossier must have known about Hunter. It actually fits very, very cleanly if you change the names. So the New York Post, great newspaper, tried to report this when it really counted last fall before the election. What did big tech do to the New York Post? Shut them down, kick them off of social media for the critical weeks in front of the election. Ridiculously, ridiculously unfair. But they got away with it. They got away with it. Watch this.
The CDC is out with new guidance on the COVID vaccine. They say if you're pregnant, it's safe.
The first major league game at the legendary Field of Dreams just hours away. But first, Harry Smith is taking us on a tour of those magical cornfields.
Good morning, America. It's great to be here with Amy and Eva on this,
Friday Eve.
That's right. And we are so excited because we have not one, but 2 new Jeopardy hosts, and we're going to have much more on that announcement coming up.
Yeah, very exciting. But first, we do have a lot of news to get to this morning as the Delta variant surges.
So that was a sample of the morning news. You see, they're not talking about Hunter. They're not talking about prostitutes. They're not talking about $1 gazillion. They're not talking about a potential tie to the President of the United States. Now, that is a hot story. I mean, whatever your leanings are, that's a good story. Yet they ignore it. They ignore it. They pretend it's not happening. Why is that? I actually can't figure it out because this is important. It is. And we're possibly living with the ramifications of the arrangements with China. What are those arrangements? Why did Hunter Biden get on that plane and go to China with his father when he was the vice president, huh? What about this pipeline that was approved? Received very little attention. A pipeline between Russia and Germany. America and most of the Western world, actually, except for Germany, was opposed to this. Under Joe Biden, he gave it the green light. Donald Trump shut this thing down. It wasn't going to happen. It has under President Biden. How about Russia when it invaded Ukraine? You know who was there for Ukraine? We were, thanks to President Trump. Now, all right, you figure it out. Who's owned by the Russians? It wasn't Donald Trump. It may very well be Joe Biden. And think of what we did to Donald Trump's family over all this nonsense, dragging Donald Trump Jr. to Capitol Hill, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees he had to pay. Why? Because there was a meeting in Trump Tower with a lawyer that lasted 10 minutes. You see what Hunter Biden is doing with prostitutes. By his own admission, Russian prostitutes and Russian guys coming in and stealing his laptop, and he's nervous about the information they're going to find. Yet they investigate the Trumps and the Trump children. It's quite a swamp, isn't it? And then Joe Biden can go out in broad daylight and boast about what he did.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
What's worse than a swamp? What's deeper than a swamp? I don't know, but I had no idea it was this bad.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.